Well, hey folks, it's been a very long time since I've been able to do a proper gun review in my in my actual home, because I've been basically living out of a hotel for the past 4 or 5 months, something like that. Getting some repairs done, getting the whole place fixed up, making it livable again, at least marginally. So I've been doing that, taking care of that, and the gun stuff has pretty much been put on the back burner for a multitude of reasons, and not just because my house is, was under construction for a long time, but also because of, current year, last year, ammo prices, ammo availability, so on and so forth. You guys have all heard the story before. You don't need me to repeat it. But now that we're back, I'm back in my proper home and everything, I figure, it's time to do a proper little gun review, because the last one I did was for the Taurus TX22, but that was in the less than ideal condition. So I'm gonna do something a little bit different here and go back to basically what I've originally done with the channel before. So today we're gonna go over this thing right here, and I may have featured this before, talked about it before a few times, but this is a Yugoslavian M48A Mauser type rifle. And I've had this one for a number of years now, and this was my first, oh gosh, I think this is probably like my first proper Mauser that I bought, I think even before I bought my Persians. And this is also the first, I guess, carbine K98 style Mauser that I've ever owned, with the curved bolt and front sight hood, which is currently off right now, but there's a story behind that. Yeah, so this thing I have shot the absolute snot out of. I mean, I've probably put 500-600 rounds through this, which is a lot for 8mm Mauser bolt action rifle, right? So I absolutely love this thing because when I bought it, the guy sold it to me for like $400, and he gave me about 200-ish rounds of the really hot Turkish 8mm surplus, which is pretty much all I ran through this gun. Because at the time, no, I think I did get my Persian first, but what I'd realized is, the old Turkish ammo like that is very low quality ammo. It's corrosive. So for me personally, I thought my Persian is much too nice to shoot that corrosive ammo out of. So I wanted a beater, shooter grade, quote unquote shooter grade Mauser for me to go out and shoot all the corrosive surplus that was out there, because also at the time the Yugoslavian surplus 8mm Mauser ammo was coming onto the market. And was available, so I wanted a nice beater rifle that I didn't really feel guilty about shooting corrosive ammo through. That's not to say I didn't take care of this thing, because I absolutely did, because I take care of all of my weapons regardless. But that's the main reason why I got this, because it was cheap, it was available, it looked like a K98, it had the same 90% form factor function of a K98. It was a Yugoslavian, so I thought that was pretty cool. And the guy included a whole bunch of ammo for it too, for like a quarter a round basically for 8mm, which is pretty darn cheap. So that's why I got it, and I was very surprised at how well this thing actually shoots. Like, you'd think with the big metal butt plate back here, just how light and handy this thing is, that it'd have some pretty stark punishing recoil. Which, if you're going to sit there and shoot 50 to 100 rounds, yeah, it's gonna bruise your shoulder up quite a bit, but just for casual shooting, maybe 20, 25 rounds, it's really not that bad. Compared to like a longer Mauser, like a 98 style Mauser, like my Persians, for instance, those kick a little bit less, yeah, but they're also crazy freaking long, and also weigh a pound, a ton and a half. So I have an appreciation for these short-ish carbine style Mausers, because they're just a lot lighter, a lot handier, but they still shoot pretty well and accurately too. And that was definitely proven to me when I not only took this out myself, I went to 100 yards, 200 yards with this gun regularly, and if I used new production PPU ammo, I think the best group I got out of this was like 2.5 or 3 inches at 100 yards, which is perfectly acceptable for a military rifle like this made in the 50s, or yeah, 50s. So definitely accurate enough. But what really surprised me was one trip I went out in the desert with my friend and 2 of his civilian contractor type co-workers. and they were one was a previous Marine, the other one was Navy, and we went out in the desert and we had a certain spot set up that was about 600 yards of just clear straight shot shooting into a mountainside. So we set up a human-sized target at 600 yards, and it's sitting back there, and in the desert and everything. And it was just, this is the longest distance I've ever shot, is the 600 yards. And if you weren't looking specifically for like where we had actually placed that target, you wouldn't be able to see it. So it was very small, very hard to see. Even though it was a human-sized, chest-sized target, it was kind of hard to see. And I really wanted to see what I could do with this thing and see if the range graduations here on the back, well, actually they are on the back of the sight, but the rear sight here, I wanted to see if these range graduations actually worked. So I took some Yugoslavian surplus ammo, which is fitting because this is a Yugoslavian gun, loaded that thing up and set it all the way up to the 600 mark, and I'm sitting, have it basically on the back of my truck, and I'm trying to hit this thing, and I'm not getting anywhere close to it. I'm like, man, this is it's not doing too well for me. So the old civilian, now civilian Marine guy who used to be a rifleman for 13 years says, give me that. So give him the rifle. He's loading it up, blah blah blah, and he sets up on the back of my truck. And when he's taking his shot, he's lining it up, and he's not moving at all. Like his body has no motion, like not even the breathing, not even the wind, nothing, no movement. And he fires. First shot, boom, hits it, just right on target, just hits it. And he's like, oh yeah, his sights are on. Cycles another one, does the same thing. He's just sitting there, not moving. Boom, round goes in, bam, hits the target. I'm just like losing my mind. I'm like, holy shit. This guy is hitting a human-sized target with these irons at 600 yards just off the back of my truck with original ammo for this gun, and just nailing it. Where I can't even do that, and I'm just sitting there and I'm in utter amazement at just, one, the guy can shoot really damn well, but also two, the fact that this rifle could even hit a human-sized target at 600 yards with irons with original ammo. That is, dude, that's impressive. For a gun is like what, 70 plus years old now, dude, like that's awesome. All right, I was so happy, like just amazed, blown away to see that happen, and that's really what sold me on this gun. I mean, I was already sold on the gun, I already liked it, but being able to do that just put a lot of confidence in me and what this gun and what other Mausers are certainly capable of, and much nicer Mausers too, right? And the fact that it's carbine too. Like, this is K98 style, freaking, not even a long rifle hitting out at 600 yards on like I said, human-sized target. That's great. That's awesome. So, definitely a capable piece of hardware. Even for as old and as simple and outdated as it is, it can still definitely get the job done. So, a lot of confidence in this thing. And for other Mausers too. But, couple like year and a half later, a long time later, I went out in the desert again myself, and shooting some more Yugoslavian surplus, just having a good time out in the desert, And when I was out there, I noticed the front barrel band here was a little loose, like it would move back and forth by itself. And I was like, oh, that's a little concerning there, and I just did it right now. Actually, see that little gap right there? It's supposed to sit back flush like that, right? So the hardware up in the front here was a little loose, and I thought, oh, that's kind of interesting. I wonder why it's doing that. Maybe it's just old, right? Because when I had received the rifle, there was a split right there in the upper handguard. That was there when I bought the rifle. And apparently it's a very common thing for Yugoslavian Mausers to split their upper handguards like that. So I didn't really think a whole lot of it. I'm like, it's just an old rifle, But when I took that next shot, I'm sitting there, fire, the whole front end right here just exploded. It went like there was wood flying all over the place. There's like little metal shards from the hardware up here just falling out of the gun. And all of this, the bayonet lug, the housing over it was just you know, dangling off the front end here, getting stuck on the front sight and everything. I was like, holy shit, did I just blow this gun up? You know, a little scary. So I stopped shooting after that happened, and I took it home and I took it apart. And what I found out is that all of the, you can actually kind of see it here, all of the wood up here in the front underneath the bayonet lug and the housing, all of this stuff here, all the wood underneath had just absolutely just dry rotted, and you know, over the years it basically shattered. It lost all its structural integrity, and the whole thing just went so without any wood to hold all of this hardware together, it fell apart and it was just destroyed. There's chunks and slivers of wood all over the place. When I took all the hardware actually completely off, I'm looking at the damage. I mean, this wood up here in the front was just crumbling. Like, you could just barely touch it, just breathe on it, and chunks would just fall off. So that's what happened. So the stock basically destroyed itself, at least in the front end. But yeah, and I was a little disheartened about that because, you know, in order to have a complete, you know, look like this, you need the front hardware, you know, for the bayonet lug and for the bayonet housing like this and all the front barrel band. You need the wood there, and I'm not very keen on sporterizing anything, hardly ever, and I want to keep things in as original condition as possible. So I was very distraught that this is the original stock to this gun. It's matching, and now an original piece was destroyed beyond repair. At least that's what I thought, anyways. So I left it sitting there for almost another year and a half after that, basically, and I just recently got the nerve and kind of thinking about it a little bit more, because it's basically just been sitting there as parts, just not being shot, you know, basically out of gun, and I was kind of sad about that. But I took some Gorilla Glue epoxy, and may not be the best solution, may not even work, I don't know yet, but I took a whole bunch of that, whole mess of that, and basically just filled up the whole front end cap here. Basically all the wood that was missing up here, I just globbed as much epoxy in there as I could, jammed the hardware back on, and let it sit for a few days. And maybe, here's hoping, that will be enough to keep this together for at least a few more shots, because I do have a replacement stock on the way. I'd ordered it from a guy in Serbia, I think? Yeah, Serbia. You know, where these guns are a dime a dozen. Yeah, these are their Mausers. They have these things all over the damn place. So getting a replacement stock for an M48 in Serbia is incredibly easy. You're practically tripping over them. In the United States, not so much. I mean, the stocks basically came with the guns, and that was it. There's nothing else. So I contracted work with him, and it's been a few months, honestly, and I haven't heard anything. He has completed the stock, and he said that he shipped it, and there's a tracking number and all this kind of stuff. But these international things, especially when it comes to military quote-unquote hardware like weapon stocks, the imports, exports get very crazy, get very restrictive. And especially with Corona and everything going on now, I don't know where it's at, and neither does he. So I think it's one of those things where I'm just going to have to wait a few months before it gets here, even more than I already have. And hopefully it goes back together so I can get it working just like its original shape, how it's supposed to be, and restore it to its former glory, because I really like this rifle. But yeah, the whole front end exploded like that. I was down for a little while. I was like, man, this is one of my favorite rifles to shoot, and it's broken. I broke it. You know, all these years, 70 years of service, and the damn thing just decides to give up the ghost, you know? Shame. But as I was doing that front end repair, I was going over the rest of the rifle, and I noticed a few things. Is the recoil lug in the stock. So this little black disc right there is a recoil lug in the stocks, and that's a very critical, important piece for these types of weapons. Without that recoil stock, basically this action has nothing to rest up against. So when it recoils, obviously there's no recoil system in it, so it's just going back against the wood. So if you don't have that recoil lug in there, this stock is just going to blow itself apart on its own. But what I had noticed is, if you look in there, right, there's chips missing out of the rear of the recoil lug. And that's not supposed to happen. That's usually not how these stocks break. Usually, stocks break right here in the tang, and they split right down the middle. But that's not what was going on with this one. So I got to looking at it, and I could actually take my fingers like this and wiggle the recoil lug just ever so slightly. I could feel it, and I could see it move just a tiny little bit. I thought, that's probably contributing to this whole stock blowing apart. So I also took some epoxy and dripped it in there and set it up against the recoil lug there. So hopefully that helps. There was probably a better solution and better way to do that. But I'm certainly not an expert on this level of repair, especially on wood original Mauser stocks. You know, I'm not a professional when it comes to that aspect, but we will see what happens. Hopefully this thing, hopefully the action just doesn't just, fly out of the stock and just, launch itself into orbit. But we'll find out. Oh, and another weird quirk about this. So this is an M48A, right? It says right there on the crest and everything. And there were 3 different versions of the M48. You had the M48 regular one, which had all milled parts. You had the M48A, which had some stamped parts, and then the M48B, I think also had stamped parts, but there's something different about it. I can't remember off the top of my head what it was, but Wikipedia has an article on these rifles, the M48s, so you can see the differences yourself. But this one was a M48A, so it had certain stamped parts, and one of those stamped parts was the magazine floor plate here. Now, this rifle, when I bought it, had been used, abused, because you could tell by the cracked upper handguard, the state of the stock and everything. There's compression dings all over the stock. It's been used, right? When I took this out the very first time to fire it, and I cleaned everything, taken it apart, it appeared mechanically fine. But when I took it out to the range, I had it sitting there on the bench, but I didn't have the magazine floor plate covered by bags or anything, so it's just resting there like that. But when I fired, it blew the entire magazine floor plate just completely out of the gun. It just went, and the rounds are just flying all over the place. And I was like, what the hell? Like, that's not supposed to happen. And my immediate thought was it was some kind of like overpressure situation or like out of spec ammo or something, because Mausers have a lot of safety features built into them that if there is like a overpressure round or something like that, it blows the gas down into the magazine well. So that's what I thought it was. So I was like, shit, okay, well, let's try a different lot of ammo. I set that lot of ammo aside, took a different lot. This is all new production PPU stuff. I wasn't using any surplus to start out with this gun. New production PPU, 8mm Mauser. It's standard stuff, works and everything else, right? Put the magazine floor plate back in. It locked in just fine. I was like, okay, load it up. 5 rounds, close it. Do it again. Next shot, kaboom. The whole thing just goes, flies out the bottom of the gun again. I was like, what the hell is going on here? And I felt like, man, it's probably a reason why this guy sold it to me so cheap, because he's probably having the same problems. So I did some research, and when I was fiddling with it, putting the floor plate back on, I realized it was like, that doesn't quite feel right. And I looked at all the wear patterns on the floor plate there, and what I'd realized is the floor plate was bent just enough to make it very, very loose fitting in here. Like, it would click into place, but the little lip that it's supposed to click up on to latch into place was not latching into place. I mean, it was so loose that when I put it on, I could hear it click, but then, I could take my thumb and press it into the follower here, and the plate would just fly right out again. So I don't think it was overpressure or anything like that. It was just the simple fact that it was loose, and the recoil from just shooting back like this was knocking it loose, and the magazine being under the spring tension and everything just went flying out. So that's what I think was happening. So I thought, well, there wasn't really any available source for another stamped floor plate for this gun. So I thought, I wonder if I can take the old version, the milled plates, and jam that thing in here. So that's what I did. Went to Numeric and I bought a M48 milled magazine floor plate, jammed that thing in here, and I used jam to kind of, a little bit too much. Like maybe I'm hyping it up a little bit, but put it in there, and it actually it fit just fine, perfectly the way it's supposed to. And I was like, all right, right on. And I did the test, and I was like, okay, I'm pushing it, it's not coming out. Wiggle the gun a little bit, smack it, okay, it's not coming out. Sweet. So I went back out to the range, put some more rounds in it, loaded it up, and sure enough, when I go to fire, boom, the magazine did not fly out of the gun. I was like, man, that's awesome. Okay, cool. I fixed it. So, yeah, just, that's the nature of the game when it comes to milsurp, right? You never know what you're going to get. I mean, you can do as much research as you want. You can do as much close detail inspection as you think you can possibly do, before the guy starts giving you the weird eye because, it's like, what are you looking for, Or, hey, maybe you should stop looking and actually buy the gun, right? There's only so much you can do, and there are some quirks and some things that you will never get just from looking at it. There are some experiences you'll never ever be able to truly get until you operate, load, fire the gun as it was intended to be used. That's definitely the case here with this thing. Man, this thing, it had a few surprises, but I guess that's a given for a rifle that's over 70 years old and has been through the shit, so yeah, I mean, who knows really how much service and use and abuse this rifle has had. I mean, heck, maybe it was used in the Yugoslav wars. I don't know. But it's been there, it's done that, and it certainly showed itself in many ways when I was using this gun. But even with all those quirks and all the things I had to do to it to get it working, to get it fixed, and fixing this, well, I use fixing loosely, but attempting to repair this front end just shattering and exploding like that. This is still one of my favorite guns, and I've been so tempted. I've been so tempted to get another Mauser in a carbine length like this so badly. But the more I wait, the more I realize that M48 specifically, dude, their prices are going up. You could get M48s for $350, $400 just all day in various conditions, but you could get a pretty nice one for $500 even, maybe even less. But now you look on Gunbroker and really ratty M48s are coming in starting $550, man. And so I'm just like, the whole purpose of this thing was to have a shooter grade beater Mauser that I could shoot all kinds of ammo through, even the corrosive stuff, and not feel bad about it. Because I will refuse to put any corrosive ammo through my Persian rifles. I just won't. They're too nice. I don't want to mess them up. And I don't care if people say, well, you can just clean it, man. You can just clean it. I don't want to deal with any of that stuff. I don't want to put any of that gunk through my really nice guns. I just don't. So that's a personal thing for me. So I've really been looking for another carbine style Mauser like this to replace this one, because it just, this stock beating itself apart, all the little quirks that go with it, and I hate sporterized guns. I really don't want to sporterize this thing as much as I can, but I need a shooter grade Mauser that I can just go out and just shoot and not feel bad about. And that's what this thing was supposed to be. I'm just really sad that it broke. But yeah, going out and getting another one, it's not a cheap affair anymore. With everything else going on in my life, it's a bit of a commitment to go and drop $500, $600, $700, $800 on a carbine style Mauser like this. Heck, even a Turkish long Mauser like the 1903 patterns or whatever, even those are getting more expensive too, which is just, man, it's blowing my mind. It's all milsurp in general is doing that. I mean, shoot, you look at the Mauser situation, man. I literally do remember the times where you could go to a gun show back. Remember when they still had those? Yeah, me too. Mausers you could get at a gun show with $100 for the rifle, and another $100 will give you the huge crate of spam cans of ammo and the cleaning kits and the little pouches that came with it and the little oiler bottles and the bayonet, all that stuff together. $100, $200, $300, you can walk out with 2 or 3 rifles and ammo to spare. Can't do that anymore. Heck, the Mausers aren't even $300 anymore. a beater grade Mosin is like 350, 400 now, and I'm like, this is just blowing my mind. And that's the same thing with even beater Mausers. They are getting way expensive, and it makes me sad a little bit, because that kind of money I just can't afford to spend right now, and I really do want this thing to live so I can go shoot 8mm again, because I haven't shot 8mm or any Mauser for a while now, and I really want to. So because oddly enough, 8mm is one of those rounds that has not really been affected by the ammo crisis all that much. So, and I also have like thousands and thousands of rounds of it just sitting back there. So I want to shoot it, dang it. So yeah. Anyway, enough about the situation, but this, get back to the rifle. This thing really just shoots great. I love it. It's one of my more favorite Mausers to shoot. It's just a really fun gun. I like it a lot. So yeah, hopefully the repairs I did to this thing will actually work. I don't expect them to be honest, because it is just epoxy, and this is a lot of recoil coming out of this thing. But we will definitely see what happens when I go test this thing and go shoot it. I hope it works. If it doesn't, well, I'm gonna have to chop this thing and basically get rid of the stock or modify it somehow so it's at least shootable. It won't be an original configuration anymore, but maybe after 70 years of hard service, maybe it is time to retire it. I don't know. We'll see how it goes, and hopefully it lives again. But yeah, that's my story behind this thing, and I really like it. And maybe someday I'll get another M48, because this one has definitely impressed me, and I would not be remiss to get another one that's hopefully as good, or better. I think it'd be hard to do one that's worse, but I've seen some pretty beat up Yugoslavian Mausers, and this one kind of was when I got it, but I'm sure there are nicer examples out there that won't shatter the whole front end like that. So anyway, that's enough about that, and yeah, hopefully this thing works, and maybe I get some shooting footage. I don't know, we'll see. But yeah, one of my favorite milsurps to this day, and probably will remain for a very long time. So anyway, with that, I will see you next time.